1 Samuel 15 to 16. God called Saul to destroy the Amalekites for the way they treated Israel when they came out of Egypt, using Samuel to instruct him to destroy every living thing. Saul did so, but disobeyed and kept alive the best of the livestock and King Agag himself. When Samuel confronted Saul, he blamed it on the people and said he brought back livestock to sacrifice to the Lord. Samuel replied, "Has the Lord as much delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice." It's the same way for us today. God sees our hearts and loves it when we obey him because of our love for him. Jesus said, "If you love me, you will obey me. If you are in love with me, you will love to please me by obeying me by the way you live your life." Sacrifice means nothing without obedience. Doing all the ritual stuff means nothing without obedient hearts. Once again, we see what's happening on the inside of Saul. He is not God's man. Saul asked Samuel to honor him in front of the people. Seems like that's what he was interested in, how he looked to the people rather than his relationship with God. Samuel finished the job and killed Agag. Samuel grieved over Saul. He was obviously hoping for better things. And the Lord regretted that he had made Saul king over Israel. The Lord knew this would happen, and yet he still let it play out, and it did grieve him as well. Next, God sent Samuel to anoint David as king, saying, "I have selected a king for myself." A key verse in this passage is, God sees not as man sees. For man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. David, the youngest of Jesse's sons, wasn't even included when Jesse lined them up for Samuel. But God had chosen David because he knew his heart. When others see a shepherd boy, God may see a king, even if your life is filled with ordinary things. He can touch you in a moment, and everything will change. When others see a shepherd boy, God may see a king. Samuel anointed David as king, but he would not take the throne yet. It would all be in God's timing. An evil spirit from God began to terrorize Saul. God will use anything to accomplish his will. Servants said Saul needed someone to come and play soothing music on a harp to bring him peace. And one thought of David. David indeed ministered successfully to Saul, and Saul loved him, and David became his armor bearer. God orchestrated this, and it is God who has brought his king into the palace. A man's gift makes room for him, and God is the one who gives us the gifts. Wow. Luke 10, 25 through 42. A lawyer asked Jesus what he must do to inherit eternal life. Jesus asked him what the law said, and the lawyer said, "It says to love God and love your neighbor." Jesus said, "That's right. Do this and you will live." Wishing to justify himself, the lawyer asked, "Who is my neighbor?" Jesus told the parable of the Good Samaritan who stopped and took care of the man who was beaten up and left on the road. A priest and Levite had already bypassed the man. Jesus asked the lawyer who was the real neighbor, and it was, of course, the Samaritan. Jews hate Samaritans, but Jesus was saying that the one who was the real neighbor was the one who extended mercy to the beaten man. And then he said to the lawyer, "Go and do the same." In other words, be merciful even as God has been merciful to you. The answer to the initial question, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? Answer, rely on the mercy of God. You'll never have it by keeping the law because none of us have kept the law perfectly. Oh, how challenging that this Jewish lawyer, this expert in the law, has to admit that only the Samaritan operated in this mercy. Jesus was also saying the only way you will be able to extend this kind of mercy to other people is to experience it yourself with God. Next, Jesus comes to the home of Mary and Martha, who had invited him to their home. Martha complains to Jesus because she's doing all the work, and Mary is sitting at the feet of Jesus listening to him. Jesus cautioned Martha that she was worried and bothered by so many things, and that Mary had chosen the good part. Sure, there is a time when the work needs to be done, and thank God for the people who are willing to get her done. But may we not get so busy with all the doing that we miss out on and neglect the good part, sitting at the feet of Jesus and listening to him.